I thought my husband was making me coffee as a loving gesture that Sunday morning. I had no idea I was about to witness him commit a crime or that his own daughter would be the one to expose what he'd been doing to me for months. The kitchen was filled with morning sunlight when I came downstairs, my head still foggy with the strange, heavy exhaustion that had been plaguing me for weeks. 8 in the morning should have felt early, but lately I'd been sleeping 12, sometimes 14 hours, and still waking up feeling like I'd been drugged, which, as I was about to discover, was exactly what had been happening. Daniel called from the kitchen, and I heard the familiar sound of the espresso machine hissing and gurgling. He'd been so attentive lately, always making sure I had my coffee just the way I liked it, bringing it to me in bed on weekends, insisting I drink it while it was hot. I'd thought it was sweet, this new domestic side of my husband of 2 years. I'd thought he was finally settling into our marriage, showing me the care and consideration I'd been craving. I was an idiot. I shuffled into the kitchen, pulling my robe tighter around me, and found Daniel standing at the counter with his back to me. 2 coffee cups sat on the marble countertop, my favourite blue mug and a white one for him. He was doing something with his hands, focused, intent. And something about his body language made me pause in the doorway instead of announcing my presence. I watched as he pulled a small amber prescription bottle from his pocket, twisted off the cap, and tapped something into my blue mug. White powder dissolved quickly as he stirred, the spoon clinking softly against ceramic. He returned the bottle to his pocket, picked up both mugs and turned toward the doorway where I'd been standing just seconds before. I'd already moved, pressed against the wall just outside the kitchen entrance, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. My mind was racing, trying to catch up with what my eyes had just witnessed. Daniel had put something in my coffee. Medicine? Drugs? Why? What was happening? Quote 1, he called. Quote 2, I couldn't move. Couldn't think, couldn't process what I'd just seen. This was Daniel, my husband. The man I'd married who'd promised to love and protect me, who I trusted completely, and he'd just poisoned my coffee. Mom? A sleepy voice came from upstairs. Emma. Daniel's 15-year-old daughter from his first marriage, who stayed with us every other weekend. Quote 4. Daniel's voice went sharp. Emma, you don't need coffee. You're too young. Go back to bed. Dad, I'm 15, not 5. Everyone at school drinks coffee. Plus, I have that history project due Monday, and I need to work on it today. Footsteps on the stairs, Emma appearing in pyjama pants and an oversized t-shirt, hair in a messy bun. She headed straight for the kitchen. I finally found my voice, found my legs, forced myself to move. I rounded the corner into the kitchen just as Emma was reaching for the blue mug, my mug, the one with whatever Daniel had dissolved into it. Emma, wait, I said, my voice coming out strangled and strange. Both of them turned to look at me. Daniel's expression was neutral, pleasant, the mask of a loving husband. Emma just looked confused and half asleep. Quote, 8, Daniel said, gesturing to the blue mug. Quote, 9, but Emma, with the selective hearing and natural rebelliousness of a teenager, had already picked up the blue mug. Quote, 10, she said, bringing it to her lips. Everything happened in slow motion and too fast at once. Daniel lunged forward, his pleasant expression cracking into something ugly and desperate. Quote, 11, I moved faster than I'd ever moved in my life, grabbing Emma's wrist and pulling the mug away from her mouth, so roughly that coffee sloshed over the rim, splashing onto the floor. Emma yelped in surprise and protest. I said, my voice shaking. I looked at Daniel, whose face had gone pale, his eyes darting between me and his daughter and the blue mug I was now holding. Quote, 14. The kitchen went silent, except for the sound of all 3 of us breathing. Emma looked between us, confusion shifting into concern. Quote, 15. Daniel's face cycled through several expressions: fear, anger, calculation, then finally landing on forced confusion. "I don't know what you're talking about. Claire, are you feeling okay? You've been so tired lately." "Maybe you're confused. I saw you," I said quietly. "I watched you take a bottle out of your pocket and put something in this mug. The blue mug. My mug. So either you tell us what it was, or I'm calling the police right now and having this coffee tested. You're being paranoid, then you drink it." I held the blue mug out to him. "If there's nothing in it, if I'm just confused and paranoid, then drink it. Prove me wrong." He stared at the mug like it was a snake. Didn't move, didn't reach for it. The silence stretched, became damning. Emma's voice was small, frightened. _quote_22_. His shoulders slumped. The mask cracked completely, and underneath it was something desperate and cornered. "Quote 23, he said finally. "Quote 24. "Quote 25, I said, the word coming out hard and cold. "Quote 26. Emma had backed up against the refrigerator, her eyes huge, her face pale. "Quote 27. "Quote 28. "Quote 29. I was shaking now. Adrenaline and fury making my hands tremble. "Quote 30, he ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd always found endearing, but now just looked guilty. "You were always on your laptop, always working, always stressed about your job. I thought if you just rested more, slowed down a bit, you'd be happier, you'd be more present, you'd be more what?" My voice was rising. "More compliant? More controllable? More like the quiet housewife you wanted instead of the senior marketing director you actually married." The truth was in his face, in his silence, in the way he couldn't meet my eyes. This wasn't about helping me rest. This was about dimming me down, making me smaller, reducing me to a version he could manage. I'd been getting promoted, taking on bigger accounts, travelling for work. I'd been succeeding, thriving, out-earning him. And he'd decided to drug me into submission, I said, pulling my phone from my robe pocket. He moved toward me, and I stepped back quickly, putting the kitchen island between us. Quote 36. I held out my hand to her, and she moved around the island to stand beside me, away from her father. Quote 37. Quote 38. Quote 39. My fingers were shaking so hard I could barely dial. But I managed. The operator answered on the second ring. Quote 40. Quote 41. The next 2 hours were a blur of police officers, questions, Emma crying on the couch, Daniel alternating between defensive justifications and manipulative apologies. They took the blue mug as evidence. They found the prescription bottle in Daniel's pocket, Ambien prescribed to him 6 months ago with about half the pills missing. They asked me questions about my symptoms, my exhaustion, how long it had been going on. 3 months, I told the officer, a woman named Rodriguez who had kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanour. Maybe longer. I thought I was just stressed. I went to my doctor twice. She ran tests, couldn't find anything wrong, suggested I was depressed and maybe needed therapy. I've been so tired I stopped going to the gym, stopped seeing friends, called in sick to work multiple times. My boss started making comments about my performance. Rodriguez wrote everything down. And you witnessed your husband putting a substance into your beverage this morning? Yes, I saw him take the prescription bottle from his pocket, open it, pour or tap something into my blue mug and stir it. That's when his daughter came downstairs and nearly drank it before I could stop her. They arrested Daniel, read him his rights, handcuffed him while he protested that this was all a misunderstanding, that he was just trying to help me, that I was blowing things out of proportion. Emma watched her father being led out of our house with tears streaming down her face, and I held her while she cried. This girl who I'd been trying to build a relationship with for 2 years, who'd just seen her father revealed as something monstrous. After the police left with Daniel, After the evidence was collected and the statements taken, I sat on the couch with Emma and we stared at each other, two people trying to process what had just happened. "I almost drank it," Emma whispered. "If you hadn't stopped me, I would have drunk whatever he put in there." "But you didn't. You're safe." "How long has he been doing this to you?" "I don't know. Months, I think." The exhaustion that had been plaguing me suddenly made terrible sense. The fog I'd been living in. The way tasks that should have been easy felt impossible. The missed deadlines, the concerned looks from colleagues, the growing sense that something was wrong with me, that I was failing somehow, falling apart. It hadn't been me. It had been him, systematically drugging me, dimming my light, reducing my capacity. Emma's next question was quiet, almost too quiet to hear. Quote, 51, ice flooded my veins. Quote, 52, quote, 53, quote, 54, I said firmly. Quote, 55. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Then, in a small voice, quote, 56, quote, 57. I took her hands. Quote, 58. We called her mother, Daniel's ex-wife Sandra. She arrived within 20 minutes, frantic and furious. When Emma told her what had happened, Sandra went pale, then red, then pale again. "I need to ask you something," Sandra said, looking at me with an intensity that was almost frightening. "When you were married to Daniel, toward the end, did you feel exhausted all the time? Did you sleep more than usual? Did you feel foggy, confused, like you couldn't think straight?" Sandra's hands clenched into fists. Quote, 61. Her voice shook. Quote, 62. The room tilted. Quote, 63. Quote, 64. We called Rodriguez back immediately, told her about Sandra's suspicions. She promised to investigate, to look into whether there was any way to prove what Daniel had done to his first wife, whether it could be added to the charges against him. The legal process was grueling. Daniel was charged with multiple counts of assault, administering a noxious substance, and domestic violence. His attorney tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, a husband concerned about his wife's health making a mistake in judgment. My attorney, a fierce woman named Catherine Walsh, destroyed that narrative by presenting my medical records, showing the mysterious exhaustion that no doctor could explain. My work performance reviews showing a sudden decline that coincided with my marriage to Daniel, and Emma's testimony about what she'd witnessed that morning. The prosecution also found something damning in Daniel's internet history. Months of searches about how to make someone sleepy, what medications were hard to detect, how much Ambien was safe to give someone, whether drugging your wife was illegal. He'd known exactly what he was doing. This wasn't concern. This was premeditated, systematic abuse. He took a plea deal, 3 years in prison, followed by probation. A restraining order preventing him from contacting me, mandatory counselling, registration as a domestic violence offender. It wasn't enough. Nothing could be enough. But it was something. Sandra filed to modify custody, presenting Daniel's conviction as evidence that he was a danger to Emma. She got full custody with supervised visitation once he was released. Emma, who'd been traumatized by seeing her father revealed as a monster, started therapy to process everything she'd witnessed and everything she'd been through without understanding it. I started therapy too, working through the betrayal, the violation, the horror of realizing someone who claimed to love me had been systematically poisoning me, working through the rage at the time I'd lost, the opportunities I'd missed, the parts of myself I'd thought were failing when really I was being sabotaged. But I also started reclaiming my life. Within 2 weeks of stopping the involuntary medication, my energy returned. The fog lifted. I felt like myself again, sharp, capable, strong. I threw myself back into work with a vengeance, reclaiming the position and reputation I'd been losing. My boss, who'd been concerned about my performance, was amazed by my turnaround. I told her everything, and she became one of my fiercest advocates. 6 months after Daniel's arrest, I filed for divorce. He tried to contest it from prison, tried to claim marital assets, tried to make things difficult. Catherine shut him down at every turn. I got the house, the cars, the savings. He got nothing but his prison sentence and the knowledge that he'd destroyed his life through his own actions. Emma and I stayed close. She started spending weekends with me again once Daniel was in prison and couldn't object. We developed a relationship built on honesty and respect, two survivors of the same predator supporting each other through recovery. One Sunday morning, almost a year after the coffee incident, Emma came down to the kitchen where I was making breakfast. Quote, 65, I asked. She made a face. Quote, 66. Quote, 67. Quote, 68. We sat at the kitchen island together, drinking our hot chocolate and reading the newspaper on our respective tablets, comfortable in each other's presence. It was peaceful. It was safe. It was everything that morning a year ago hadn't been. Emma said after a while. She smiled, and it was real and warm and healing. That afternoon, I got a call from Rodriguez, the officer who'd taken my initial report. Claire, I wanted to let you know we finally got confirmation. We tested some old medication bottles we found in Sandra's belongings from her marriage to Daniel. One of her prescriptions for vitamins had been tampered with. Someone had removed some of the vitamins and replaced them with sleeping medication. We can't prove it was Daniel definitively, but combined with the pattern of behaviour, it was him. I said, we all know it was him. Yeah, we do. I'm sorry we can't add charges for what he did to Sandra. But it's helping her custody case. The judge is taking it very seriously. That's something. It is. And Claire, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen a lot of domestic violence cases. Most of them don't end with the victim getting justice. You got justice. You got out. You're helping other victims by being willing to talk about what happened. That matters. After we hung up, I sat with those words. Justice. I had gotten justice, which was more than most victims of this kind of abuse ever received. I'd gotten my life back. I'd gotten my health back. I'd gotten my strength back. And I'd learnt something invaluable. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, if your body is telling you something isn't right, if you're experiencing symptoms that don't make sense, investigate. Don't accept easy answers. Don't let people gaslight you into thinking you're imagining things or being paranoid or just stressed. I'd almost missed it. If Emma hadn't come down for coffee that morning, if she hadn't reached for that mug, if I hadn't seen the panic in Daniel's face when his daughter was about to drink what he'd prepared for me, I might still be in that fog. I might still be sleeping my life away. I might still be slowly losing myself while my husband played the role of concerned caretaker. But I'd seen, I'd acted, I'd stopped him. And now I was free. 2 years after the coffee incident, I was thriving. New job with a better company. I promoted to VP of marketing. A house that was mine alone, free from the taint of Daniel's presence. A relationship with Emma that had grown into genuine friendship. A circle of friends who supported and believed me. A therapist who helped me process the trauma and rebuild my sense of safety. I also started speaking at domestic violence conferences, sharing my story, educating people about covert abuse and medical abuse. About how violation doesn't always look like hitting. Sometimes it looks like a husband making coffee. Sometimes it looks like care. At one conference, a woman approached me afterward. She was crying. She said quietly, I told her. She nodded, thanked me, and left. I never found out what happened to her, but I hoped she got tested. I hoped she got out if she needed to, because that's what I'd learnt from this nightmare. Love doesn't drug you. Love doesn't diminish you. Love doesn't put you to sleep so you're easier to manage. Real love wants you awake, aware, fully yourself. Real love would never slip something in your coffee, and anyone who does isn't loving you. They're controlling you. Daniel tried to contact me once after his release from prison. A letter, forwarded through my attorney, claiming he'd changed, he'd gotten help. He wanted to apologise properly and seek my forgiveness. I didn't read past the first paragraph. Catherine sent it back with a reminder about the restraining order and a warning that any further contact would result in legal action. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his explanations or his remorse or his redemption arc. I needed him to stay away from me, to never darken my life again, to become nothing more than a cautionary tale I told to help other women recognise the signs of covert abuse. That was the role he would play in my life now. Not husband, not partner, not even enemy, just a warning, a reminder. A story that might save someone else's life, the way Emma's interruption that Sunday morning had saved mine.